Hello and welcome. So have you ever wondered, why is it that this fragrance that I love so much has not been hyped and has barely received any attention? If you have asked yourself that question, then this is the video for you today. Because today I will be sharing with you 5 fragrances that I believe should have been hyped and received much more attention than what they did. But they did not. This is the second of this type of video, and if you missed the first one, I will link it right above for you. But before we jump right in, if this is your first time here, I'm Arahi, and in this channel, we love to talk about fragrances, and we absolutely love to smell fabulous at all times. I upload videos on Tuesdays, Thursdays, Sundays, and sometimes I even have a bonus video of the week for you. If that sounds like the type of content that you're interested in and like a good plan, well then please consider subscribing, give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget, leave a comment. Let's go. Okay, so the first fragrance that I'm going to share with you today is a fragrance from my favorite fragrance house. So of course, if you've been with me for a while, you know I'm talking about XERJOFF. But this fragrance is absolutely exquisite. But guys, I really believe I've never heard anybody talk about this fragrance. And it is an absolutely stunning fragrance. So I really don't understand why. And the fragrance that I'm talking about is XERJOFF Join the Club 400. This fragrance, guys, is an absolutely stunning fragrance. It has incredible performance. It's a fragrance that you can use any season of the year for any occasion. You can dress it up, you can dress it down, you can take it anywhere. It's a fragrance that also gets me a ton of compliments every time I wear it. It is really, really amazing. It's actually number 3 in the list of my most complimented fragrances. This is the fragrance that I pull when I want to feel beautiful and special, but elegant. And I want to make sure that I call attention and get those precious compliments. This fragrance opens beautifully with citrus notes and white florals. But the white florals here, as well as all the other notes in this fragrance, have been blended so beautifully that nothing really sticks out or is screechy or is obnoxious. There's a beautiful smoothness to this fragrance that, although it's a powerhouse, it is very smooth, just like if you're gliding in an elegant dress. In addition to the white florals, it has some yellow florals. It is sweet with a beautiful honey note. The honey here is not syrupy, but there is a certain level of density to the honey, so you are going to pick up on it. But the level of sweetness, like I said, is very balanced. There's some vanilla here, and there's a beautiful bouquet of yellow florals that mix very, very nicely with the white. And at the dry down, you get the most beautiful, powdery, floral, sweet, with like a hint of an animalic quality to it that gives this fragrance some oomph and edge. This is a fragrance that I highly recommend that you get your nose on because honestly, guys, I just can't believe it has never been hyped. To me, the dominant notes of this fragrance on my nose are definitely that honey, like drizzled over the white tobacco note, and that vanilla, which has been done beautifully, and then the woody notes in the background. This is a fragrance that I really believe you will fall in love with immediately. And it is a truly unisex fragrance. For me, this does not lean female or male. This is truly a unisex fragrance. So now let's talk about the fragrance that stole all of the attention from my precious Join the Club 400. Now this next fragrance, I promise you, you have heard so many people talk about it. I've talked about it on this channel because it truly is an exceptional, beautiful fragrance. But I really think that it could have shared and should have definitely shared the attention with JTC 400. This fragrance that I'm about to share with you is also not part of the Join the Club collection from XERJOFF, but it is definitely a powerhouse. And I'm speaking about La Capitale. This fragrance. To my nose, oh my goodness, guys, this is really a lovely fragrance. To my nose, the dominant notes are strawberry, vanilla, and caramel. And I can clearly pick up on those notes all throughout the olfactory journey. This is also a fragrance that you can use all throughout the year and that will get you a ton of compliments. Although it does have oud, the oud has been done masterfully smooth. At times during the olfactory journey, you can pick up on it, but it's always like in the background of the rest of the notes, just bringing a bit of character to the fragrance, but that's all. This fragrance is really about that strawberry, that vanilla, and that caramel. And it is truly, truly a very beautifully done fragrance. But let's talk about what happened between La Capitale and JTC 400. All right, so in this corner, we have JTC 400. And in the other corner, we have La Capitale. So guys, I really don't understand because both fragrances were launched in 2018. And if I recall correctly, the launch dates were not that far apart. They're also fragrances that perform pretty much the same. You can definitely get a solid 7 to 8 hours from each. And if you overspray, you can extend that time. They're also fragrances that you can wear in any season of the year, whether it be during the day or during the night. Now, if you say, well, maybe it's because JTC 400 has that touch of animalic note that you mentioned. Well, so does La Capitale. And that animalic touch is actually pretty much the same to my nose. It's almost negligible, but just enough to give the fragrance kind of like an interesting twist. We can't even justify this difference in attention because of the animalic note. Now, could it be, and this is just my opinion, that La Capitale has a bit of a gourmand feel to it? To me, La Capitale is truly a gourmand fragrance, one of those that doesn't make you smell like food. Could it also be, and of course, this is just my opinion, that with JTC 400, you do have a fragrance that is truly unisex, and many would argue that it does lean to the masculine side. While with La Capitale, we have a fragrance that is definitely leaning feminine. All in all, guys, all I'm saying is these fragrances are both absolutely stunning. And while La Capitale deserves all of the hype and the attention that it has received, all I'm saying is that JTC 400 is a fragrance that if you've never gotten your nose on it, you really need to try, because it is truly stunning and one that you should not snooze on. I really believe that they could have shared the spotlight and everybody would have a win-win situation. But no, La Capitale got all of the hype and all of the attention, and her sister had none. Now, this next fragrance that I want to share with you is one of those cases where I just feel like how terribly unfair, because the sibling of this fragrance has received, when I tell you, all of the attention. And I am going to really speak in detail about the level of attention that it has received from the fragrance community. And I'm not saying that the sibling that got all of the attention does not deserve it. I definitely agree that it does deserve that level of hype and attention. But I also know that the one that I'm going to share with you now is truly exceptional and should have been treated a bit better. So I am speaking about Rosendo Mateu number 6. Guys, I have to tell you, listen, if you've never gotten your nose on this fragrance, you really need to. You can thank me later, because this is, when I tell you exceptional, it is truly exceptional. I can tell you that the dominant notes of this fragrance, as it states on its own plaque, are truly jasmine, sandalwood, and like an oriental type of musk. This fragrance is quite powdery with a good amount of vanilla. That, guys, this fragrance is so addictive. It is woody with some white florals, a good bit of musk, but the musk is like very, very interesting. It does have like a different take on a musk note. There's also some florals in here and some like fruity notes. It is sweet, but not crazy sweet. And it is quite ambery. This fragrance is, for me, truly a masterpiece. And I'm sure that if I'm talking about Rosendo Mateo number 6, you know who is the one that got all of the attention. But let's talk about the sibling that got all of the attention. So of course, the sibling that got all of the attention and stole all of the hype from my precious number 6 is Rosendo Mateo number 5. Okay, so yes, this fragrance is truly exceptional, but there's so much that I have to say about this sibling that stole all of the attention. The dominant notes in this fragrance are definitely florals, a beautiful, beautiful amber note, and musk. But even though it has not been disclosed, we all know that there's a note of leather in this fragrance. But the leather, I think that part of the hype and part of the excessive love that this fragrance has received is because that leather note has been done so smoothly. It's almost like a suede type of note, but it's definitely one that you will pick up on immediately. So let's talk about what happened between Rosendo Mateo number 6 and number 5. So here we have Rosendo Mateo number 6, and here we have Rosendo Mateo number 5. So here's the first point that I want to make. Rosendo Mateo number 5 was launched in 2017, and Rosendo Mateo number 6 was launched in 2018. That being the case, I would have thought that when Rosendo Mateo number 5 came out and everybody just fell in love with it and everybody went into the hype, including me, I would have thought that that would have been enough for it to have its moment in the spotlight. And then when number 6 came out in 2018, then number 6 would at least have been given the opportunity to have its own moment and shine. But that was not the case. What we find is that Rosendo Mateo number 5 has casted a shadow on all of its siblings, starting with number 1, number 2, number 3, all the way to number 7. And while I do think that Rosendo Mateo number 5 is truly a stunning fragrance, I really believe that number 6 is one that should have really gotten much more attention and definitely been hyped. So if you really want to know just how hyped and how much love Rosendo Mateo number 5 has received, it is actually being compared to YSL's BABYCAT, which I can tell you, I have tested both fragrances and they do have similar vibes, but there is definitely differences, clear differences to my nose between both of these fragrances. Me, Rosendo Mateo number 5 has a slightly higher pitch on the note of leather. You can pick up on the leather note much more than you can in BABYCAT. While BABYCAT to me opens with quite a bit of vanilla. And it also is definitely much more spicier, like the spicy notes are much more prominent and dominant than in Rosendo Mateo. Rosendo Mateo to me definitely has a smoother, even though that leather note is a bit higher than in BABYCAT, to me Rosendo Mateo is a bit smoother because this fragrance brings in other notes such as that vanilla that take the fragrance on like a different turn. All in all, BABYCAT and Rosendo Mateo, of course, are exceptional fragrances, but did they deserve to get all of the attention, especially Rosendo Mateo number 5 versus its sibling number 6? So if we really start to look at both number 5 and number 6 and really compare them, they're both musk-based fragrances. So you know how some people don't like musk fragrances? Well, we can't even say that that's why they preferred number 5 and really didn't even pay attention to number 6, because they're both musk-based fragrances. And by the way, the DNA of Rosendo when it comes to musk, in my experience, is pretty much the same in all of his fragrances. Then number 6 also has fruity notes And these fruity notes include the note of coconut. And the fruity notes that you can pick up on this fragrance are definitely exotic type notes. And of course, it includes coconut, as I said before. Just that alone should have pulled people and rewarded this fragrance with a bit more attention and hype. But it did not get that level of hype. I also find, and this will not be a popular opinion, and please understand that I love Rosendo Mateo number 5, and it does have its place in my collection. But if I really discuss this with you objectively, I can tell you that the journey, the olfactory journey of Rosendo Mateo number 5 to my nose is a bit linear. I'm not saying that this is not a complex fragrance. It definitely is, but I find that it is a bit linear. I get a lot of what I get in the opening, I get in the dry down. And the process to get me from the opening to the dry down is a bit linear, which means that I am picking up on the same group of notes all throughout the journey for the most part. That is not the case with number 6. The olfactory journey of number 6 is incredibly exceptional. The other thing is, one of the notes that really attracts people tremendously to a fragrance is that note of vanilla. But both of these fragrances do have quite a bit of vanilla, and the vanilla note is pretty dominant in both fragrances. There are also other notes that pair up with the vanilla, so it's not just that the vanilla is the only dominant note. But if we were to say or try to justify that the reason Rosendo Mateo number 5 has had so much hype, it's because of its strong vanilla presence, well, the vanilla is quite dominant in number 6. It is always present throughout the entire olfactory journey. And at the dry down, when you get that powdery that I told you about, when you get that powdery effect, you are going to get it with a serious amount of vanilla, which is what makes it so exquisite. Then maybe we could make the argument, and this is just me now trying to find a reason why, because I really can't, why number 5 has gotten so much attention and number 6 barely any. Could it be because number 5 is truly unisex in my opinion versus number 6 that leans a tad feminine? Number 6 is really a unisex fragrance, but if I had to pick a lean, I would say that it leans a tad to the feminine side. But that is not the case in my opinion with number 5, which is truly a unisex fragrance. And some people would even argue that it leans a bit masculine, but not to my nose. So the next fragrance that I want to share with you today is a fragrance that, honestly, guys, again, I have not heard anybody talk about this fragrance. I did have it in one of my videos and I can't remember which one it was, but I did talk about it in detail because I really do think that it's a beautiful fragrance. I'm also going to ask you to forgive me because I can't get the pronunciation of this fragrance straight no matter what. But as soon as I share with you the fragrance house that I'm speaking about, I'm sure you're immediately going to know which was the sibling that garnered all of the attention and of course all of the hype. And I am talking about Le Liquid's Imaginaires, and I'm talking about Le POURPRE. So this fragrance is what's known to be a chypre, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right, I apologize, but it's known to be a chypre fruity fragrance. This is an exceptional fragrance that is quite musky and has very much an opening of like musk and amber with some woods in the background. It is also very aromatic and like fresh spicy with like a touch of green to it. And at the dry down, it is quite powdery. It's also sweet because of like some fruits that are involved in the blend. I can't even speak of dominant notes to my nose for this fragrance because I pick up on all of the notes and then some of the notes that were not even disclaimed. The blend in this fragrance is truly exceptional, and the olfactory journey is quite complex and so fascinating. This is a fragrance that is so different than anything else in my collection because it has two notes that to begin with are not common in fragrances. There's Angelica and then there's also Shiso. And those notes are not very common on their own and much less when you combine them together. I think that in my collection, I have just one other fragrance that has the note of Angelica where it's actually dominant. And of course, that's Angelique Noir from Guerlain. This is a fragrance that I definitely consider unisex. There is no lean in this fragrance. And this is one that I can pull all throughout the year and use it during the day, during the night, and for any occasion. So now let's talk about the sibling that did get all of the attention. And in this case, we have two siblings. So first we will be talking about the one that I am sure you're already expecting me to pull. And then we will be talking about the second one that also received quite a bit of hype. So the sibling that got most and almost all of the attention is definitely Blanche BETE. I'm sure that that is not a surprise to you because this fragrance, and truly, please do not be mistaken, I truly also agree that this is an exceptional fragrance. I'm just saying that, yes, it is great, but its sibling Pourpre is also an exceptional fragrance in a different way. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. So this fragrance is really quite lactonic. But it is truly exquisite. To my nose, this is all about that lactonic note, which is quite dominant, and the tuberose and the vanilla. This is a fragrance that I can pull on all year except the summer. I think it's a bit much. And I also believe that it does definitely lean feminine. This is a beautiful floral woody musk fragrance. Do not be mistaken. I really do love it and enjoy it tremendously. But I do believe that it could have shared the spotlight with its sister, Pourpre. So, as I said at the beginning, this fragrance actually has two siblings that commanded all of the attention and took all of the spotlight and did not share it. The second fragrance that I want to talk to you about is Dame Rosa. Dame Rosa is an amber floral fragrance that is truly exquisitely beautiful. And I do believe that it deserves all of the hype and all of the attention that it received. But I still think that it could have made some room for some attention and some level of hype to its sister, Pourpre. It is sweet, and this is a fragrance that I love to reserve for the spring, fall, and summer. You can use it during the day, during the night. You can dress it up, you can dress it down. It's perfect for any occasion. To me, the dominant notes of this fragrance are definitely that rose with the champagne that adds like a fizzy feel to it. I mean, truly, you can pick up on that note clearly. And then there's some woody notes that just accentuate the beauty and like the sophistication of the fragrance. And then there's some citrusy notes with pomelo, I think, if I recall correctly, that just add a level of freshness that just makes this fragrance really beautiful. The only thing that I will caution you on is that the rose in this fragrance, if I had to define it, I don't think that it's a modern rose or a very fresh rose. This rose to me is like when you take a rose and you put it inside of a book because you're trying to capture and keep some sort of memory. So you put the rose in the book and the rose dries out. And then when you open the book, you get that very special rose smell. That's what I get in this fragrance. And of course, that's not something that everybody will like. But no matter what, this fragrance received a ton of attention and a ton of hype. Now let's talk about what happened between these fragrances. So here we have Blanche BETE, and here we have Dame Rosa, and I'll just keep Pourpre here with me. So this is another case that I really don't understand because all of these fragrances have impeccable performance. They also, all three of them, don't have similar scent profiles. So they're all offering something different, which would, for me, mean that I'm giving attention to each whenever I feel like pulling for a specific scent profile. But that has not been the case because Blanche BETE and also Dame Rosa had all of the attention and the hype. Then I would have also thought that this fragrance would have received much more attention than what it did, being that Blanche BETE has that lactonic note, which is not popular with everybody. And then Dom Rosa has that rose, which to begin with, many people don't even like rose fragrances. And then we're talking about a rose that's a bit nostalgic. But even at that, they still had all of the attention. The other thing that I want to call to your attention is that, so Dom Rosa was launched in 2013, and then you had Pourpre, which was launched in 2016, and then you have Blanche BETE, which was launched in 2021. So even at that, they each had enough space between the launch of one or the other to have their own moment in the spotlight. So I still wonder, why is it that Pourpre really didn't get much attention at all? Something very interesting and that we could argue is that Pourpre is the only one that's truly unisex of the three. The other two really do lean feminine, but I don't think that that's enough to justify the amount of hype that the other two received versus the almost no attention that Pourpre garnered. Specifically to Blanche BETE, because between Blanche BETE and Dom Rosa, I'm sure you will agree that the level of hype of Blanche BETE was definitely even more than Dom Rosa, right? Well, could it be that 2021, which was the year in which Blanche BETE was launched, could it be that that was the beginning of the frenzy of lactonic fragrances and people loving lactonic fragrances? I don't know, but it's the only thing that I can think of. But then how do we explain Dom Rosa? And how do we explain, they're really far apart in launch years. So I just don't understand. All right, so the next fragrance that I want to share with you is from a fragrance house that hasn't been around for a very, very long time, but it's also not brand new. But I'm sure that you've heard of this fragrance house and of course of the fragrances that I'm going to share with you today. This is also another case where the fragrance that did not receive much hype has two siblings that actually garnered all of the attention and all of the hype. So I am speaking about ARGOS Pour Femme. So ARGOS Pour Femme is a beautiful fragrance that is definitely feminine. It's not unisex at all to my nose. It is definitely, like the name says, very feminine. It's a beautiful fragrance that opens up with a great deal of vanilla. It is very, very powdery, but this fragrance, guys, has a level of sophistication that is truly exceptional. This is a fragrance that you want to pull for special occasions when you want to feel beautiful and elegant, and you definitely want to garner attention from those around you. This fragrance, like most ARGOS fragrances, is a powerhouse. On my skin, it is definitely a beast, so I do not recommend that you overspray it at all. It is sweet, musky, and aromatic, with a beautiful note of iris, which of course lends to that powderiness that I told you. At the dry down, you're gonna get a beautiful powdery finish that's comprised of like the white florals and a beautiful amount of vanilla, which is really dominant all throughout the olfactory journey. And then that touch of like muskiness. It is a very, very beautiful and elegant fragrance. There's also a note of lavender here, which adds like a freshness to the fragrance. But at the end of the day, some of the dominant notes to my nose on this fragrance, and this fragrance is such a powerhouse, guys. Oh my God. And it is so, so beautiful. But the dominant notes primarily for me are definitely that vanilla, the lavender. There's a beautiful violet that is mixed like with jasmine as part of the olfactory journey. And then you have a masterfully done tonka bean. Just a beautiful, beautiful fragrance. This is a fragrance that I pull for all throughout the year, any season, and I can use it during the day, during the night, and for any occasion. Now, let's talk about the first of the two sisters that took all of the attention from my precious Pour Femme. None of these two fragrances will come as a surprise to you because when I tell you, everybody has talked about these fragrances. So the first one is ADONIS Awakens. This fragrance is also one that I pull all throughout the year, day and night. And this fragrance is truly beautiful and exceptional. I'm not saying that it didn't deserve the amount of attention that it garnered, but what I am saying is that it could have shared the spotlight with such a special fragrance as ARGOS Pour Femme. To my nose, this is all about Oh, that beautiful note of chestnut, my goodness. Pink pepper, chestnut, vanilla, rose, and some freshness that's brought on by a note of grapefruit. This is definitely a unisex fragrance. So the other sister that garnered all of the attention and did not share the spotlight at all is Triumph of Bacchus. Now this one is a bit different for me because this one definitely leans masculine. I mean, I use it and I love it because it leans masculine, but it's not like it's a masculine only fragrance. It's really not to my nose, but it definitely does lean masculine. And there will be people that will really not like that. This fragrance though is absolutely exquisite and does deserve all of the attention that it's garnered. There is a beautiful, beautiful boozy rum note in this fragrance. And then there's peach, patchouli, a beautiful tobacco note, which is with you all throughout the olfactory journey, and of course, vanilla. And that boozy rum note with that backdrop of vanilla, oh my goodness, it is just exquisite. This is a fragrance that I do not consider it to be a gourmand, but it just smells so yummy. It is really, really something else. All right, so now let's have a conversation about what really happened here. So here we have Adonis Awakens, and here we have Triumph of Bacchus. Here, near and dear to my heart, I have ARGOS Perfume. I have to start by telling you that I really think that fragrance lovers are snoozing on this one. They've really missed the boat. If you haven't gotten your nose on Perfume, I really encourage you to try it. It is an exceptionally beautiful fragrance. So we can't distinguish one from the other and say that Adonis and Triumph of Bacchus, garnered all of the attention and got all the hype because of performance, because for the most part, I have more than just these three ARGOS fragrances, and I can tell you that for me, on my skin, they are always beast mode fragrances. And when I say beast, I mean, I don't play with these fragrances. I don't overspray them at all because you will choke yourself and those around you. Then to me, being that a lot of their fragrances do seem to lean masculine because they do, and being that Perfume is truly the only fragrance that I know that is truly not unisex, but very much so feminine, as the name calls it, Perfume, right? Well, I would have thought that just because of that, this fragrance would have garnered some level of attention and hype, but it barely received any. Now let's talk about launch dates because that could play a role. So Perfume was launched in 2017. Triumph of Bacchus was launched in 2019, and Adonis Awakens was launched in 2022. And just to complete that circle, I want you to know, in case you didn't know, that ARGOS itself, the fragrance house, was established in 2014. So Perfume came out in 2017 when the fragrance house already had been around for several years. So it's not like it was just the victim of, a brand new fragrance house, in my opinion. I still don't understand because I feel that this fragrance could have had enough attention from 2017 to 2019, which is when the next fragrance was launched. That was not the case. This fragrance barely received any attention, and it was definitely not very hyped. Could it be that the other two fragrances that were launched later, as in Adonis Awakens and Triumph of Bacchus, could it be that there was much more of a PR effort around them? I don't know. I really don't understand because none of it makes sense to me, if I'm honest with you. Let me know your thoughts if you're familiar with these fragrances or with any of the fragrances that I'm discussing today, because I really am scratching my head wondering why. Why is this sibling getting all of the attention and the others none whatsoever? The next fragrance that I want to share with you is a fragrance, guys, that I am absolutely in love with. And it just breaks my heart to see that it doesn't get the attention that I really believe it deserves. Sometimes I wish that I could just go around giving decants so that people can get a sniff of some of these fragrances that I believe really did not get the true attention that they deserved. And in this case, I am speaking about ELECTIMUS VIXERE. So VIXERE is a fragrance, guys, that when I tell you I'm in love with this fragrance. Have you ever gotten your nose on this fragrance? Because if you haven't, I really just want you to, if possible, for you to try it, because I know you're going to see what I mean. This fragrance is one that I pull all throughout the year for whether it be a day occasion or a night occasion, a informal, casual, formal, black tie, it doesn't matter. This fragrance can do it all for you. This is truly a unisex fragrance to my nose. There is no leaning female or masculine. This is truly a unisex fragrance. This fragrance is very citrusy. It is powdery, courtesy of a beautiful note of violet. It also has some iris. It has a bouquet of white florals that is beautifully done and quite a bit of vanilla. I can't even speak to the dominant notes to my nose on this fragrance because I really pick up on all the notes that have been disclosed and a couple of others. But they all blend so beautifully. There is not one that sticks out from the other to my nose. This is an exceptionally well-blended fragrance. I can also tell you right now that when it comes to ELECTIMUS, and I do have many more than just the ones that I'm going to share with you now, these fragrances are powerhouses. These are not fragrances that I recommend you overspray at all, because for sure you will choke yourself and all of those around you. You will also walk into a room if you overspray and people will immediately look towards you because these fragrances are just massive beast mode fragrances. So now that I mentioned ELECTIMUS, I'm sure that some of you already know what are some of the fragrances that I could be talking about next. Because in the case of VIXERE, there's two siblings, not one, two siblings that garnered all of the attention and who did not share the spotlight. The first one that I want to talk to you about is one that as soon as you hear the name, you'll know, and I'm sure you already know and are expecting that this is one of them, and I am speaking about TRAJAN. This is a fragrance that, guys, I have to tell you, oh my goodness, honestly, it does deserve all of the hype that it's gotten and all of the attention and the cult following. It really deserves it all. This to me is really a gourmand fragrance, one of those that doesn't make you smell like food, but this is definitely a gourmand fragrance to my nose. And there are no dominant notes for me in this fragrance because, again, the DNA in my experience of the ELECTIMUS fragrance house is that of exceptional blends. Like there's nothing that sticks out to you. Even though I will tell you that specific to TRAJAN, there's some notes that I pick up on that I know are here that they did not even disclose. And those notes are vanilla, caramel, and orange blossom. For sure, guys, I am telling you, have you ever gotten your nose on this fragrance? Do you own it? Have you tried it? If you have, don't you pick up clearly on that vanilla and that caramel together and then that orange blossom at the top? Because it is so clear to me that they're involved in the blend. TRAJAN is truly a unisex fragrance and to my nose does not lean feminine or masculine. But when I tell you this has been masterfully done, it is an exceptional fragrance. This next one is another one that garnered so much attention and also has its own following. It did get a little bit less attention than TRAJAN, but it still got a ton of attention compared to the almost no attention that my little VIXERE received. And I am speaking about IMPERIUM. IMPERIUM is also a fragrance that I pull all throughout the year. This is a unisex fragrance, but it definitely leans masculine. This really does lean masculine. I still use it, I love it, but it does lean masculine. So let's talk about what happened between TRAJAN, IMPERIUM, and my precious VIXERE. Now, I have to tell you that VIXERE is actually my favorite fragrance from ELECTIMUS. That is how much I love it. And I know that if you get your nose on it, you're gonna fall in love. Please let me know if any of you have ever tried this fragrance and your thoughts, please. So let's talk about this, right? Because when it comes to these three, I'm even more at a loss for words and scratching my head trying to figure out what happened here. All of these three fragrances were launched in 2020. if I recall correctly, they were launched one after the other, but it's not like they were launched on the same date. At least they were not made available to us all on the same date, from what I can recall. But even if they were launched on the same day at the same time, you would still think that then everybody is going to try all of the fragrances and then land on the one that they prefer. And when we talk about landing in the one that you prefer, these 3 fragrances have totally different scent profiles, so they would each cater to a different preference. Then there's the question around unisex or leaning masculine. So Imperium, as I said, does lean to the masculine side, but then VIXERE and TRAJAN are definitely unisex fragrances. So there's not even a difference there. The only thing that I can think of is that maybe TRAJAN and Imperium received much more PR attention, or just received more attention in general for whatever reason, and VIXERE was left in the background. Let me know your thoughts if you've gotten your nose on all 3 of these fragrances and how you really feel. All right, guys, so we have reached the end of this video, and I hope that this was as enjoyable for you as it was for me to do the research and prepare and film this video. As always, thank you so much for hanging with me, and I will see you in the next video.